Hi everyone, I'm Jen Oswald, Director of Outreach and Care, and I'm here with a quick devotional for you this week. I'm in the book of Isaiah, chapter 41, verses 18 through 20. It says, I will open rivers on the barren heights and springs in the middle of the plains. I will turn the desert into a pool and dry land into springs. I will plant cedars, acacias, myrtles, and olive trees in the wilderness. I will put juniper trees, elms, and cypress trees together in the desert, so that all may see and know, consider and understand that the hand of the Lord has done this. The Holy One of Israel has created it. I've read this section numerous times before, but I guess I've always just skimmed over it. And this past week, as I was spending time here and sitting in these verses, what jumped out at me was the contradiction that's apparent in these verses. Talking about open rivers on the barren heights, springs in the middle of the plains, turning the desert into a pool, and dry land into springs. A pool doesn't belong in the desert. If we're in the desert and we come upon a pool, it takes us by surprise. We're not expecting it. Cedars, acacias, myrtles, and olive trees, those don't grow together. They grow in very different climates and in very different environments. And it says here that I'll plant them together in the wilderness. Juniper trees, elms, and cypress trees, planting them in the desert. We're in the desert. We don't expect to see a cypress tree or a juniper or an elm. Those don't grow in the desert. So if we were in the desert and came upon those, it would take us by surprise. It wouldn't be what we were expecting. And I reflected on that God often moves this way, doesn't he? He moves in ways that don't make sense to us in our natural world. And as I'm thinking about the weeks past, and we had a staff meeting today and just reflected on what we've seen God do through this time, and it just echoed this to me. We talked about how we've seen and gotten closer with our neighbors that we hadn't talked to in the past, or maybe nothing more than a quick wave. Now we're having conversations with them. We're connecting with family that we otherwise wouldn't be connecting to. Technology has made it possible to reach out to family that's not near us geographically, but suddenly we're connecting with them on a regular basis. Our community has rallied to stock the shelves of food pantries and organizations in our community and give them food and supplies beyond what they could have imagined. Walls have been broken down in the marketplace and in the faith community. And all of this has happened during a pandemic and a total lockdown. That is contrary to what we expect to see in our natural world. We would not expect to see more connection, more serving, more love, and less division, but that's what we're seeing. And we saw it in the middle of a lockdown. And why does he do this? Why does God move this way? Well, he makes it really clear in verse 20. So that all may see and know, consider and understand that the hand of the Lord has done this. The Holy One of Israel has created it. He does it for one word, for glory, to give God the glory. Now, maybe you're not feeling it right now. Maybe this video comes to you and you are in the thick of something much bigger than any of us can imagine. You have very real and legitimate concerns. You're fighting battles we know nothing about, and I get that your situation is not lost on me, and I'm not trying to minimize that. In fact, we've been having a weekly wellness challenge group throughout this pandemic, and one of our challenges this last week was to evaluate our thoughts, was to collect our thoughts, jot them down, and really start to analyze them and think about where they come from and whether they deserve to stay. And one of the thoughts that came across for me, something that I discovered in the activities that we were doing, is that when I get really stressed out and overwhelmed and depleted, one thought that just far too easily pops into my mind is, I can't do this anymore. I know that I've even said it when I've been in stressful situations or I've just come to the end of my rope. I know that I've even verbally exclaimed, I can't do this anymore. And that thought is in my mind more than I care to admit. This situation has challenged me in my ministry. It's challenged me as a mom, as a wife, just as a person. My humanity has been challenged in this because it has taken me to the end of myself, to where I've numerous times said, I can't do this anymore. One example I can give you is that I remember, and I hope this encourages you, but when I was in labor with my middle child, Josiah, I remember in the weeks leading up to the birth and the delivery, I had decided that I wanted it to be a natural birth. Didn't want any medications, nothing. I just wanted to experience natural birth. And so my nurse knew that going in, my doctor knew that going in. And so it came to be crunch time, and you know where I'm going with this story, right? When labor just got to be unbearable, and in my mind I couldn't do it anymore, guess what thought came into my head, and what kept coming out of my mouth was, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. And so I remember distinctly my nurse at one point saying, she and I locked eyes, and I remember her looking at me and saying, but you're doing it. And I'm not sure it mattered in the moment, but looking back in hindsight, that was such a profound thing to say, because my mind was trying to convince myself that I couldn't do it, that it was far beyond anything I could handle, that the burden was too much to bear, and I just wanted to give up. And she was there to speak the truth over me of, yeah, but you're doing it. She was there to challenge that negative thought. She was there to challenge the defeat that I was feeling. And so I encourage you with that same thing tonight. I encourage you that you're doing it. Whatever situation you're in, you're watching this video, you got up today and you put one foot in front of the other and you're doing it. And God sees you and you are prayed for and loved, and just keep doing it is my encouragement to you. It's not easy. And we're not saying that any of this is easy. But I do know that, as we just saw in the verses in Isaiah, that God promises and he shows up in ways that we wouldn't expect him to. So like turning a desert into a pool, or like being in a desert and stumbling upon a juniper tree or an elm or a cypress, that those are the streams in the desert that he offers us. He doesn't promise to take us out of the desert. He doesn't promise to take us out of the wilderness, but he does promise to show up in ways we would never imagine or we would never expect. So I encourage you, as you're going through this, look for those things. Look for the springs in the on dry land and pools in the desert. Look for those, because they're there. They're going to show up in really unexpected places. Maybe it's a conversation with a friend you didn't expect to have. Maybe it was a pocket of quiet time today that you didn't expect to experience, but you got to enjoy. Maybe it was some unexpected favor that you received, or someone encouraged you in some way that you didn't see coming. Or maybe it's more subtle and you've just experienced a softening of your heart towards a person or towards a situation. Whatever it is, I encourage you to see it for what it is. It's God showing up in a way that we wouldn't expect. It's him showing up with a pool in the desert to help us manage and to navigate the wilderness and the desert that we're in right now. So I hope that encouragement can help you get through this season that we're in. We're all tired. Our endurance is running low on all of us. So just know that you're not alone in that. You're being prayed for and you're loved. And like verse 20 says, so that all may see and know, consider and understand that the hand of the Lord has done this. The Holy One of Israel has created it. We as the church have an opportunity to show up and to be an illustration of God in a way that's unexpected, in a way that no one would expect us to react to the situation, how we handle division, how we handle our personal opinions, how we handle struggle and suffering. We have an opportunity right now to be a living example of a stream in a desert for somebody. And if you tonight need that stream in the desert, I pray that God shows up and shows himself real to you. And through all of this, no matter what you're going through, just remember, look for those streams in the desert, and to God be the glory. God bless.